At YouthBuild, Opportunity Youth are the driving force of everything that we do. And since the inception of this podcast, we knew that the primary focus needed to be on them. Our young people are by far and away the most interesting, most inspiring, and most important people in our organization. To borrow words from President Theodore Roosevelt, our students, regardless of sex or gender or identity, are each truly the man in the arena, with their faces marred by dust and sweat and blood. They are the ones who are striving valiantly to do the deeds with great enthusiasm and with no fear of error or shortcoming. They are the ones spending themselves in a worthy cause, and they are the ones who could never be mistaken for those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. It is truly with them where the credit belongs. However, in this episode, we take a step back and we take a look at the big picture. To help give us perspective and a clearer understanding of that big picture, joining the Voice of Opportunity Youth podcast is YouthBuild USA CEO, John Valverde. You know, when we started this podcast, we really talked about how we want to focus on our young people because nobody can tell our story better, and they are the product. They are what we sell. They are, they're our greatest representation. But I also wanted to, invite you because I thought you would have a lot of insight, and I think you have a lot of interesting perspective, and I think you have a lot of value to add to this conversation. So right out of the gate, man, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I'm with you 100%. It is about our young people and not the leaders they will be in the future, but the leaders they are today. So it's happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. And, it's such a big undertaking of YouthBuild USA and everything that they do. Prior to working here, I was actually mentoring with our organization here in Canton, Ohio for a good couple of years. And I had always known what YouthBuild was, and I'd been informed. But man, once I started working here and I got a real understanding of it, it's just such a huge organization that reaches so many different lives and so many different communities. And you're the man kind of behind all of that. You're the, you're the guy up top. So, I mean, just talk to me a little bit about not only the depth of the organization, but how vast it is, and kind of give me an overview of what YouthBuild is, what your role is, and what it is in the community.
Yeah, so my name is John Valverde. I'm president and CEO of YouthBuild USA, which is tricky, right? Because we're actually global, so maybe we should be YouthBuild Global or YouthBuild Worldwide. But our name is currently YouthBuild USA, and in 1978 in East Harlem, our founder asked young people, which is so critically important to our conversation today. She asked young people, what would you do if you had adult support to transform the community? And they said, we'd take back those abandoned buildings, we'd rehab them, and we'd create affordable housing. And YouthBuild Affordable Housing was born. The name didn't come till many years later, but from there, that model was replicated throughout New York City, then replicated nationally, then expanded into countries outside the United States. So here we are today with nearly 300 YouthBuild programs in 18 countries around the world. We've graduated over 180,000 students. We've rehabbed over 35,000 units of affordable housing. We've provided 50 million plus hours of community service, and all delivered through the efforts, talents, contributions of amazing young people.
Yeah, and I love in the world of YouthBuild, I feel like a lot of time numbers get thrown around, and those are all super impressive numbers, the amount of housing, the people that we've served. But it's so hard to quantify the life changes that happen. And as somebody who's gotten to see some of those life changes up close and personal, it's truly a special thing that we do here. And I kind of, this is what the point of this podcast is I want to be able to, give a platform for the public to learn a little bit more about YouthBuild, and certainly to learn a little bit more about our students. But I want to learn a little bit more about you, John, because you have a very interesting backstory, and I think it makes you uniquely qualified to sit in the seat that you do. Can you speak a little bit about, who you were and how you got to be the person that you are today?
My story is almost generic in its beginnings, and I think there's so many examples throughout the YouthBuild network that are even more powerful stories than than my own. But I was raised by a single mom in New York City, struggling to make ends meet. Were it not for the kindness of family and friends, we would have probably been homeless several times. But we were able to stay on folks' couches and in their basements and get through that period. And I never really knew I was poor or felt like I was poor. I felt loved by my mother, and I grew up with my brother, the three of us. And I did have a bit of a relationship with my father, but not, a full relationship with him. But I made it through all that struggle, and became the first in my family to go to college. I'm also a first generation American, the first in my family born here in the United States. My family's from Costa Rica. But when I was 20 years old, which is probably just around the average age of a YouthBuild student, I made a terrible decision that resulted in my incarceration. And I went to prison with a sentence of 30 years, of which I had to serve a minimum of 10 years before I would be eligible for parole. And as you or anyone could imagine, 20 years old, 30 years, minimum of 10, for me, my life was over. And, I couldn't see tomorrow, let alone 10 years or more down the road. And early on in my incarceration, I reconnected with my father. I had been estranged from him at the time of my arrest. And he said to me, say yes as much as you can to help others, and you will find meaning and purpose and be free. And he said that because I actually went in with some education. I had started college before my incarceration, and the average reading and math levels for folks inside was fifth grade or less. So I could be someone that could contribute to people's lives. And my father kind of tasked me with that. And I still live by that mantra today. But back then, I went on to become a tutor, helping people learn how to read and do basic mathematics. I went on to found 2 nonprofit organizations while I was incarcerated. I was the first incarcerated person to take the LSAT and be accepted to law school while still in prison. The first incarcerated person to receive adjunct professor status with Mercy College and Nyack College. At the time, I taught for 10 years at the college level in college programs inside the correctional facility, Sing Sing, where I was for 11 and a half years, of my 16 years in total that I served in prison. And I did a lot of amazing things while I was incarcerated, and I worked hard on myself. But I also had a lot of people who believed in me even more than I believed what was possible for me. And I was able to be granted parole, and I was released from incarceration in 2008 during the recession. And my mother picked me up. I lost my father in an accident 3 years before my release from prison, so he never had a chance to see me home or free or successful in the way the world might define success. But I know that my father died knowing that I was truly already free, because I was living the words that he asked me to live, and I was making a difference. But when I was released, my mother picked me up, and she could see how terrified I was, and she said to me, don't look back, only look forward. And I remember that day so vividly. It was actually 13 years ago last week. I was released on Earth Day. So every Earth Day is my welcome home or freedom day. And I also get to celebrate the planet in some ways. So it's exciting. And as you may know, April is Second Chance Month. And also this happens to be, we're talking today during re-entry week. So I want to connect that to YouthBuild and share from there, my journey to YouthBuild. And when I came home, I truly believed that no one would give me a chance. that I would be judged, rejected, discriminated against for my past and for my crime. And so I really engaged life almost choosing to live anonymously, hoping no one would ever figure out my past. Of course, in 2008, I had never seen email or the internet or a smartphone. I didn't really know what Google was, and I didn't realize that everyone could simply look you up and find out your whole past. But, you know, I was so afraid of the world's judgment that, you know, I chose to try to hide away. And were it not for some really powerful experiences that where I felt accepted, experienced a sense of belonging, felt that people cared about me, that I finally started to believe maybe I could be a voice, an advocate for second chances. And that's when I entered the nonprofit world. And, you know, fast forward a few years later, you know, I am approached and receive an email from a recruiter talking about the CEO position for YouthBuild USA to succeed our founder after 38 years of her leadership. And I immediately thought, Matt, there's no way that I'll ever be selected for this. I'm not a good role model for young people because of my past and what I did. But I had the courage, because of the experiences I had with caring people who believed in me, I had the courage to at least go for it and not be worried about the outcome. Really go for it, believing that I would learn, that I would grow from the experience, no matter what. And I went on 7 interviews over 4 months in 4 different cities, met with 31 different people. My 7th interview was 3.5 hours long, just talking about business acumen. And I was selected to be CEO of YouthBuild USA. And one of the early stories, articles, described me as CEO of second chances. And I think that's where I want to make the connection here to how powerful YouthBuild is and what I think people should know about us in particular. Now, YouthBuild is about supporting young people aged 16 to 24 who have left school or not working, often coming from disadvantaged communities. I hate all these labels, but we have to talk about it in a certain way. And YouthBuild is their second chance to rebuild their lives, to complete their education, to advance a career, to become leaders, and to be called the CEO of Second Chances when I was hired. It's humbling to be the first formerly incarcerated CEO of a nonprofit with a global mission, but I believe it means little or less if it doesn't inspire all the young leaders in YouthBuild to believe that anything is possible for them, and if it doesn't inspire society to believe in the importance of genuine second chances. And so I'm proud to be the CEO of maybe Second Chances and to be living out my own second chance here at YouthBuild USA.
Yeah, I think anyone can look at your story and see the redemption and see the quality of person it must have took to turn your life around like that, and to be inspired by that. I think that, you know, the more our students find out about you and the more they see that, you know, if he was able to do this, what could I be capable of? I couldn't think of a better place, you know, or a better person to be sitting in the place that you are right now. I think it truly is like where you were meant to be. So I think that's absolutely awesome. And John, there was a couple of things you were talking about throughout. And one of them that kept coming up was people that believed in you. And I'm really big on this too, because, you know, I always try to impart on my students, young people are often motivated by their haters, kind of the idea of like, oh, my haters make me famous. My haters are my motivators, that kind of mentality. And anything that throws fuel on your fire, I'm going to support and I'm going to be in your corner on. But big picture to me, and what I always try to tell them, guys, it's not about proving your haters wrong. It's about proving the people that believed in you right. And whether it was your father or whether it was other people in your life or the recruiter who sent you that email, there was a couple of people along the way who were supporting you and were in that corner and were backing backing you up. And to me, that's always going to be a big indicator of, do you have a chance of making it or not? That's going to be a big motivator. That's going to be a big driver. So I think the fact that you had that was very important, but I think a lot of young people do not have that necessarily from their home, from their community, from their peer group. And that's where I think YouthBuild steps in so many times, is now you have a team full of people who are in your corner, who are backing you up, and who are willing to do the necessary work to kind of feed you those opportunities and give you that chance to step forward. You talked about, you talked about labels for a second, and disadvantaged youth and, disenfranchised and all these different terms that we call young people. At YouthBuild, those terms are not used very frequently. What we like to say is opportunity youth. Can you explain why that's important to you, what that verbiage means, and what kind of a difference that makes when we're referring to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. What immediately comes to mind, and all of us in YouthBuild believe this, is that young people have talents, gifts, and intellect in equal measure, but not necessarily equal access to opportunity. That's one thought that we believe, but it's more than that, right? We refer to young people as opportunity youth, and I'm sure they're not super excited about that as another label for them. So I'm sure we're seeking a new iteration of what to call our young people, our young leaders, but maybe just leaders, right? But it's the idea that young people present such an opportunity for this country, for our world, to bring the leadership, to advance equity and justice, to really strengthen every system and area of our world and our economy, if only they are given the opportunity. And so we call them opportunity youth for that reason, primarily. So they present an opportunity for us, and if only given the opportunity to advance their power and potential to make a difference in the world, we can actually create a world that works not just for more people, but maybe even one day all people. And so this potential that opportunity youth hold is really the secret sauce of YouthBuild, because this, all of us know this who do this work. If you have the most exceptional workforce or career training program, the most exceptional educational program, leadership development program, service program, etc., but you lay it on top of a foundation of structural injustice, or a foundation that doesn't have love and trust and caring and belonging, it doesn't work. So what is amazing about YouthBuild and what we've been talking about so far is that in addition to these core elements like education and career, really our foundation is about love. And if a young person comes to us, as you described, not having relationships, people who believe in them, people who tell them anything is possible, people who remind them of their talent and gifts, they come to YouthBuild and all of a sudden start to experience that, because the values of YouthBuild really are based in love. And if you love young people, you don't have to like everything about everybody, but if you lead with love, young people start to feel, wow, these folks care about me. They believe in me. Then they start to trust you because they know that that's true. Once they start to trust you, they start to share more about their experiences, maybe things they want to heal from and things they want to put in their past, in their proper place, so that they can grow beyond it. And they start to share that with caring people in a YouthBuild program, and they begin to experience liberation, freedom, and start envisioning a future for themselves they never imagined was possible. And so it's that environment at a YouthBuild program where young people who did not succeed in the public education system, which was not designed for them, who live in communities that are structured in such a way that to advance is an uphill, constant battle, they go to YouthBuild and they start to feel, I'm not alone in this. I am a leader. I am capable of anything. if given the opportunity. And now I have people who believe in me, support me, want to see me succeed. And yeah, from time to time, when I get stuck, maybe I'm going to get some motivation from those haters and motivation from people I want to prove something to. But yeah, I would say the majority of the time is spent feeling like I'm around people who want to see me grow and succeed. And I want to prove them right and make them proud, and make a difference in the world to pave a way for those who follow behind me. And it is amazing to see this transformation over and over and over again. Matt, I used to think it was like I would visit a YouthBuild program and the program was presenting their star student, like the main leader in the, and I was like, how's this possible? And then I started to see, no, this isn't their star student that everyone's presenting. This is what YouthBuild is. And you said it earlier, but the number of times I've heard young people say, were it not for YouthBuild, I'd be in jail or prison or in the graveyard. And also, how many times I've heard young people say, YouthBuild is the first place that someone told me I can be somebody and that I am somebody, and made me feel like I belong to something great. And when you really, really think about those two comments from young people, this is the world that YouthBuild is trying to create and lead by example for the rest of the world, so that we can truly embrace young people for the power and potential they have to transform themselves, their communities, and the world.
Gave me goosebumps a couple of times there, John. I'm not going to lie. I feel fired up. I'm ready to go do my job right now, get these students going. But no, man, there's so many different points we can go off of there. But I think one of the most important is the value you talked about of love. And that really is, I feel like, first and foremost in everything that we do here at YouthBuild. And I think students understand that. They'll come into the program through mental toughness and maybe through their first couple of weeks or months. And there's a little bit of standoffish. There's still a little bit of like, I don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't know that you truly have my best interests at heart. There's been people my entire life who said they did, and then they walked away. But then through, the consistency and the expectations and the support that we give, I really do think that, maybe months 2, 3, 4, that's when they start to buy in, and that's when they really start to believe, and that seed of belief grows with them. It's in their head and even beyond their time at YouthBuild, because, in the short time that we get with students, I know sending them out into the world, they're not a finished product yet. They still have growth and they still have development in front of them. I mean, they're 19, 20, 21 years old. And I look back at my time as a person of that age, and boy, oh boy, I had every advantage in the world, and I still wasn't very good at life. I still didn't have it figured out. So that they're going to have to go out there and make mistakes and do things and have ups and downs and live their lives. But hopefully with the foundational skills we give them, they're going to be able to, grow and thrive and do those different things. Another one of the values that is very clear on the YouthBuild website and in the organization as a whole is diversity. And I want to talk about that because, we look back at the past year, and obviously COVID, and we'll get to COVID, is the big story. But I also think it's really worth noting here that in a lot of people's opinions, we're living through the civil rights era 2.0. There is a lot of movement towards social justice. There's a lot of movement to inclusive, to behaviors and things like that. So as a whole, what does diversity mean to YouthBuild, and why is it so important?
It's so interesting, Matt. Recently, I heard a quote from Viola Davis, the actress, and she said, we have to stop thinking about diversity and start thinking about inclusion. And I translated that in my mind to mean like diversity is a fact. Like we can't deny it. There are more women in the workforce. There are more ethnicities in the workforce. There are more age generations in the workforce, just using the workforce as an example, than ever in history. So diversity is a fact. It's there. But inclusion is an act. And that's what I believe YouthBuild, we've always embraced diversity. We've always embraced young people at different stages and places in their lives. We've always been diverse in geographies. We're all over the country. We're around the world. We serve rural, urban, and tribal communities. So we've always been in the diversity space. It is now about how YouthBuild leads in the inclusion space. So we all thought millennials were going to be the number one highest population of young people ever in history. Well, Generation Z has outnumbered them, and we anticipate now Generation Alpha will outnumber Generation Z. So the future, the present, is young. And until we really recognize that and work to unleash and generate the force and power of inclusive equity leaders that are now sitting at a YouthBuild program, we are not maximizing the potential we have. And so when you think about a world now, really a reckoning, a time where we're all thinking about social justice, where we're facing some truths and we have to manage through them, and we want to get through it and to the other side of it more united and stronger as a global community, as people with a shared humanity and people who care about each other. I think about YouthBuild as a powerful example of that. Just to share briefly our global mission, imagine, and this is a true story, imagine young people from Canton, Ohio, or Boston, Massachusetts, or New York City, describing their experience of racial injustice at a convening with young people from 8 other countries around the world. And they describe it in detail, what it's like for them to be born into this system and to experience it and the challenges. And then the mic gets passed to young people in India, describing what it's like to be born into the caste system in India and the structural injustice they experience, and immediately connect all the dots with these young people in Ohio, New York, Boston. And then the mic gets passed to a young woman in First Nations Canada, describing what it's like for her to have grown up on a reservation and the structural injustice that she and her community experiences. And you realize it is a global challenge that we have to increase equity and justice in the world. And we are now a global community. There's no denying it. The connections are all there. So how does YouthBuild really work with young people to develop their skill sets, their mindsets, their leadership, their lifelong learning, knowing that they're going to have to navigate through this system, be the leaders that create not just the leveling of a playing field for themselves and other people, but the creation of a brand new playing field. What needs to happen for that to be true? We need these numbers of young people really to be the leaders that transform the world. So we're excited about YouthBuild's role in not just racial equity and social justice. What you and everyone in YouthBuild knows, our geography, our locality and context is different, depending on where you are. And what we know about the YouthBuild movement is that we're addressing human trafficking, we're addressing opioid overdose epidemic, we're addressing LGBTQ issues, we're addressing racial injustice, environmental injustice, and climate change. We're addressing homelessness. We're addressing substance misuse. We're addressing every social challenge there is in the world is being addressed in some way at a YouthBuild program. And so how do we think about the intersection of movements, all these movements, the movements for Black lives, the movements for climate justice, the movements for LGBTQ rights, the movements for racial justice and social justice? How does the YouthBuild movement intersect with all of those movements to advance a world that works for everyone.
Yeah, it's really impressive how inclusive YouthBuild is when it comes to the individual students' lives. I think all aspects of their life we try to, help them improve and help them grow on. And you talk about the diversity and the ability to connect with each other. And I think that's been really important for us too. Over the past year, we've had to reinvent ourselves. And, we're speaking with CEO of YouthBuild USA, John Valverde, right now via Zoom. And that's been one of those things where it's really opened up a lot of doors. I think originally when COVID hit and we all had to move into the digital world, there were so many challenges. There were so many things that we didn't know. I think a year into it, maybe a little bit more at this point, I think we've seen a lot of these opportunities of how can we connect with people, across the globe, across the country, across the state, wherever. And this has given us this new opportunity. And I think maybe, we were moving towards it, but really COVID kind of hit the acceleration when it came to, hey, let's start to connect and let's use this technology to start to connect. But that does bring up, the elephant in the room that everyone has been facing over the past year, which is COVID-19, the pandemic, and everything that's gone along with it. It's fundamentally changed the world. It's fundamentally changed it for myself as an individual. It has also fundamentally changed it for, the greater, human mankind. How has it changed? How has it impacted YouthBuild USA?
It's so interesting and also challenging to face the fact that COVID has really exposed the disparities that have been there all along. It's put a spotlight on the issues that many economically disadvantaged communities face, and really has, as you know, and we discussed, brought to life the social justice and structural injustice that so many people face in this country and around the world. And COVID, in many ways, we used to describe education as an equalizer. I think COVID has also served an important role as an equalizer in the way we think about justice and equity and inclusion in our world. And so what actually comes to mind, which is, of course, we have to pivot for virtual learning. We have to pivot for the way we increase communication and think about technology differently, for sure. All of those things matter. But for me, it feels like this brings us back to our roots at YouthBuild. The values that we've lived by all along are only strengthened and reinforced and brought more to life because really central to what we've always believed is that those closest to the problems and challenges are also closest to and hold the solutions. And how COVID is really driving the need for us to have hope in the power and potential of young people, I think is a key element of what the world can look like going forward, right? We don't want to go back to normal. We want to create a new paradigm. So we have to be bold enough to believe that young people in YouthBuild and all over everywhere have the ability to transform the world and shift the paradigm, create a brand new paradigm. We have to believe that it's possible that with adult support from caring people like us, they can transform themselves, their communities, etc. But we also have to have the wisdom to know that it's going to take the collective village. And so it also, COVID brings it back to YouthBuild as a movement. No individual YouthBuild program, whether Project Rebuild or anywhere else in the country, stands alone. And it is powerful to know that there's a network of youth builders, around the world that stand with you, stand with each young leader at a YouthBuild program to advance justice. And so how we work together, this collective village idea, is going to be driven by young people. And COVID has accelerated what's possible in that and the role that young people in YouthBuild will have.
Yeah, they our students, and I can only speak for my program in particular, but our students had to push themselves in new ways. They had to learn new things for them to, so many of our students view, YouthBuild and Project Rebuild as strictly a construction. That's what we do. We're swinging hammers and we're doing that kind of stuff, which is totally what we do. But it introduced this new set of challenges of, well, how do I act on a Zoom call? What do I need to do in my house to make sure that I'm focused and doing what I'm supposed to do? And I think for a lot of our students, they grew in a way that they didn't necessarily expect to. So many of them joined and thought, well, I'll learn how to read a tape measure, which is an important skill. But they ended up having to learn, hey, this is how I conduct myself professionally on a call. So, it really did. To us, it was a challenge, but at the same time, it was opportunity. And I think that's what was so important as we embrace that mindset of this is an opportunity for us as an organization.
That's great.
And it did. It was, it was ups and downs. I won't lie to you. There was ups and downs. But I would say as a whole, I think we are a stronger organization. We faced, we've got some issues, but we've faced them and we've grown. And I think that's really important that as an organization, not only as Rebuild, but as YouthBuild as a whole, I think we've been able to embrace that. And I'm glad you brought up the concept of, it takes a village, and that's really important. And I think most people believe that about young kids, maybe middle schoolers and younger. But then once you get to high school, in that age range of which we serve, 16 to 24, most people just kind of look at you and say, yeah, you need to figure it out. What are you doing with the rest of your life? And I think that's a really big ask for a young person who doesn't, who doesn't have that experience, who didn't have the chance to do that. So, with that kind of being said, and that mentality being very commonplace as well, you just go ahead and figure it out. I think it's just unfair to ask a young person to do that. So with that expectation, with that kind of, mentality, with so many, I think people don't understand young people, I guess is the point I'm trying to get to. What do you think the general public needs to know about our young people and what the challenges they face and what they need out of their, these next couple of years of their life?
A couple of things come to mind. One is related to COVID and just challenge in general. I think we have to remember the resiliency of young people to even make it to a YouthBuild program. What our young leaders have experienced in their young lives to the point when they arrive at a YouthBuild program is more than many people face their entire lives. So young people are strong, resilient, really brilliant, and but they often don't know it. They don't fully appreciate how all the experiences and everything they've already overcome in their lives has built a foundation of strength, of courage even, that could be used to transform the world. And so when they get to YouthBuild, they actually start to understand, I don't need fixing. In some ways, I don't even need help. All I needed was opportunity and someone to believe in me. And when you couple that with the lived experience that they've already had, we're talking about leaders that bring a set of skills and qualities and characteristics that everywhere in the world would benefit from. So I think it's important to know that about young people. They're resilient. They don't need fixing. And then the other thing is that they are our hope. Like, until we fully embrace this idea that having young people at the table, again, those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, until we realize that the change we're seeking in the world is going to require revolutionaries, right? And then until we embrace the fact that we have the revolutionaries, and maybe we just need to call them solutionaries. These young people who they live it every day, they overcome it every day, they're committed to changing their lives and go to a YouthBuild program and now want to pay it forward and give back to their communities. We need to have inclusive approaches that have young people, young leaders at the table going forward, and think about how that approach needs to be applied everywhere. And so it's so important for the world to know that young people truly have the power and potential to transform themselves, their families, their communities. And you know this, Matt, how many young people graduate from a YouthBuild program, become a parent, and now, because of everything they've discovered and learned and from their YouthBuild experience, are now developing their children to be the current and future leaders in the community. Like, that's the ripple effect that we need to begin to embrace, because all of us just need to recognize what we've really done is we've supported multi-generational poverty in some cases and multi-generational injustice. But these young people, they're the leaders we need, and they need our support and our love and our belief in them.
Yeah, it's that concept of, building skills, building lives, and building community. You build those blocks on top of each other, and, we hopefully enable those young people to have those skills, and they in turn are able to build their life, and which in turn, enables the community as a whole to rise. And I mean, that's, I don't want to oversimplify the secret to us, but I mean, that's really at its core kind of what it is right there. You talked a little bit about the future, and I think that's always a very important thing to be looking forward on. One of the things that YouthBuild is great about, in my opinion, is embracing the concept of green building, green technology. Why is that so important to YouthBuild? What does that mean to YouthBuild? And really, what does that mean to our students moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really brings me to the intersection of movements and the role YouthBuild plays in that. We talked a little bit about climate or environmental justice, and the way I think about green is if we can repurpose furniture, recycle and repurpose garbage, and we can build more sustainable systems and products, then we can repurpose lives. And, programs like YouthBuild and many others, believe that, and believe that if a young person walks through our doors, they come with the commitment, the desire to change, to be better, to be more, so that they can make more of a difference. If they show up, it's our job in a green, sustainable way to think about how we support them in repurposing their own lives, and how we repurpose the goals that a community might have to be more sustainable, inclusive. I think for YouthBuild, that's how we view the green movement. And we see green as more than just construction at this point. And, technology and other career pathways are also now becoming greener. We are in ongoing conversations with the Biden-Harris administration about YouthBuild's role in infrastructure, which, as you know, isn't just roads and bridges. It is about technology. So we see our young people playing a key role in the green movement going forward and over the next several years. And it's been part of our history since 2007, 2008, and certainly with the ARA stimulus funding during President Obama's presidency. So we're active in the green space. And for us, it's always connected to justice and how young people and communities build sustainable, more just, more equitable, more inclusive lives and environments.
Yeah, I think all of that is true. And I love doing the tour of houses that Project Rebuild has worked on in Canton, because as we do that with students early on, it's always very clear to me how powerful that imagery is of, hey, that house right there was on the demo list and it was going to be torn down. And you probably feel like that house right now where you're on the demo list and nobody wants you and you're just an eyesore on this community. But look at it now through the hard work, through the dedication, through the time, the effort, everything that we put into that house. There's now a family living there. There's now people who are, members of our community adding to our community because we put that work in, and it's very representative of them. And I hope that, I hope that the students recognize the bigger picture there of, yes, we're fixing houses, and yes, we're, working with, green technology, but it's more representative than just, hey, we're doing this to be environmentally friendly. And I also think it's really worth noting here too. And this comes from a site visit we did not too long ago. We visited a concrete precast company, and they were talking about, green energy and green technology. And I kind of asked them, like, why is this so important to you? And they're like, because it's important to our customers. This is business now. It's not, however you feel about it is fine. But at the end of the day, this is, the way of the future. And we're a company that's trying to, position ourselves so that we can move forward. And I think it's really important and really admirable that YouthBuild is doing that. And that moves us into our next kind of question here of, aside just from green technologies, what does the future of YouthBuild look like?
I'm excited about the future of YouthBuild in terms of green career pathways beyond construction, getting into manufacturing and IT and healthcare and other industries. Those are certainly part of our future and how we're thinking about the work. I think the biggest piece of the future is what COVID has exposed. And we often talk about it as the triple pandemics, right? Of not just COVID, but also economic inequity and racial injustice. So we believe the future of YouthBuild, really the present of YouthBuild that will lead us into the future, is that YouthBuild stands for health, equity, justice, second chances, and hope. And so the future that it has, the generating a force of inclusive equity leaders, and feel this, hear this, experience this for a few seconds here, where young people in Canton, Ohio are visiting Brazil and other countries around the world in exchanges to bring solutions from Canton, Ohio to challenges being faced in Rio in Brazil. And then young people in a YouthBuild program in Brazil coming to Canton to share their solutions to problems in Canton, and young people building global relationships and partnerships to advance justice, and what it would mean for our world to have young people talking to each other, building community, building connection, to be the solutionaries that we need. So I see a big part of YouthBuild's future in advancing those kinds of leaders, and also YouthBuild being a bridge to other organizations that support employing young people in middle skills jobs. So YouthBuild is maybe the first place a young person experiences belonging, believes in themselves, gains the confidence, gains the skill sets and mindsets. But then we are the bridge to the next opportunity that will advance their careers and their lives in every way. And we're also excited that the future will hold many of our young leaders being elected to office and being in politics and really changing and reforming policies and systems to build a world that works for everyone.
It's so exciting to hear you talk about the future of YouthBuild. And I just so genuinely believe in it because we're fueled by young people. We're fueled by youth. So our future is it's limitless, the potential and the opportunities. And who knows 5 years from now what this organization looks like and where we kind of stand and what our young people are able to do to transform not only, themselves and their communities, but us as an organization. I always want to know, and it's important when students are planning out their career path, what does this organization look like in the future? What does this company want to be in the future? And to hear you talk about it, like I said earlier, man, I feel fired up right now. I feel like I'm ready to run through a wall and get things going today. I think as we're getting towards the end of this interview, and we're speaking with CEO of YouthBuild USA, John Valverde. John, whether it's from your beginnings, which were, humbled and challenging, all the way to where you sit today. I said it earlier. I think your story is just unbelievably inspiring. And I think our students actually can, look at you and say to themselves, hey, if this guy can do it, I can do it. What could I be? Who could I be? What advice would you give to those students? What would you want them to know? And what would you impart on them as if you could?
Yeah, that's, there's always so much you want to say. And I kind of frame that question a little bit about what I wish I knew when I was their age, and obviously I was incarcerated during the time that a YouthBuild a YouthBuild student is in YouthBuild. But I think when I think about my journey through incarceration and all the way to being, the CEO of a nonprofit with a global mission, I embrace it with humility. That's really important. But my advice, my guidance, my thoughts for young people in YouthBuild is don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not enough. Believe that anything is possible for you. And that doesn't mean that your communities are going to be positive. Every person that you're around is positive. But you can choose to surround yourself with a circle of excellence. People who believe in you, people who big you up, people who support you, people who want to see you succeed. The most successful people in the world. Think about the average of the 5 people they spend the most time with, and have a vision for where they want to go. The other thing that I would say is mind your mind. Really be careful and thoughtful about what you let into your mind. The whole world is designed to fill you with fear, doubt, anxiety, so that you feel less than, and therefore need that product, need that person. That's the way our world is designed. So the more that you focus on growth, the more you think and surround yourself with positive people, and the more you feed your mind with things that will make you better. Maybe can't do that 24/7, but the more you do that, the stronger that you're going to be. So people, so your associations, your mind, what you feed it, and how you focus on growth, not lack. And then also the point of having a vision for your future that you can live into. If you don't know where you're trying to go and the goal you're trying to reach, it is really hard to get there, to identify the people, to identify the books or seminars or YouthBuild programs that you need to feed your mind. But if you do have that vision, you can rally all the people around you to advance your goals. So never let anyone tell you that you're not enough. I wish someone would have told me that early on. I think I would have not have made some of the choices and decisions I made that resulted in my incarceration. But what I've learned over the years are those key elements. And I am enough. And even today, as a CEO, I'm afraid, I have doubt. I worry about what people are going to think. That's part of life. But because I've surrounded myself with positive people, like all the people in YouthBuild, they constantly remind me that I am enough, that anything is possible for me, and that I need to have the courage support young leaders like you. And I want you all to know, all young people in Youth Build and everywhere, you're heroes. You're my heroes. You give me hope. I would not be here today were it not for people like you who are working hard to transform yourselves and your lives and others around you. I couldn't do this work without you. And you give me hope for the future. And we're counting on you and we're proud of you. But most of all, we hope you feel proud of yourselves because what you've journeyed through is incredible. And we're so excited to see what you do next. And again, you give us hope.
I always say there's these amazing protagonists out there in our world living these incredible epic journeys of growth and, realization and development. And they just need a platform to show it and to speak it. And luckily, we have YouthBuild and we have organizations like this that are doing things to give them the tools to succeed. So powerful words right there. John Valverde, CEO of YouthBuild USA. On behalf of myself personally, on behalf of Project Rebuild here in Canton, Ohio, and on behalf of everyone that is involved in the YouthBuild universe, John, thank you so much for what you do. Your efforts are appreciated and they're making a difference. So thank you for being on this podcast and thank you for everything.
Thanks for having me and big kudos to Project Rebuild. Thank you for your commitment to young people and your community. We're inspired by you as well.
As an individual who has proven that transforming one's life is possible, John Valverde serves as an inspiration to all of us in the YouthBuild universe. The Voice of Opportunity Youth podcast was produced in the Project Rebuild studios in beautiful Canton, Ohio. Our podcast music was provided by thepodcasthost.com and Atuli, the podcast maker. Find your own free podcast music over at thepodcasthost.com/free music. To find out more about YouthBuild, visit youthbuild.org. And to support Project Rebuild and this podcast, visit projectrebuild.org. I'm Matt Fantone, and to all that support Opportunity Youth, I thank you.